Hello, welcome back to Beauty Bee and to a review video. I don't do these very often, however, when I pick up something that I think is worthwhile to talk about for 10 to 15 minutes, I usually try to do a video. And this did fit the bill. This is the Physicians Formula All-Star Face Palette. This is a somewhat recent release, and it is a 6-pan face palette from Physicians Formula. It is $15. I found mine at Target. I've also seen it at Ulta as well as on the Physicians Formula website. And the short version is I'm quite happy with this. This is, as mentioned, this is a 6-pan product. You have 2 bronzers. One is sort of a satin finish, and it is the existing Murumuru Butter Bronzer. You have a darker, warmer matte bronzer. That is the Matte Minoi Butter Bronzer. You have 2 highlighters. These are the Mineral Glow Pearls and a golden highlight. That's the Rosé All Day Petal Glow. You have 1 powder as well as a Happy Booster blush. Now, the packaging will tell you that these 4 products are all limited edition. However, there are very, very similar existing products in Physicians Formula line. So they're limited edition in the same way that, Becca, RIP, used to make limited edition highlighters. Just some quick overall observations. This entire palette smells. It smells like the butter bronzers, I believe. It's sort of a strong coconut sunscreen, and I actually like it. It's not a negative to me, and I don't smell it once it's applied to my face. However, when I have it on the brush and I bring the brush up to my face, I do smell it. If you are sensitive to fragrance, you'll want to skip this one. 4 of the 6 shades explicitly mention that they have fragrance in them in the ingredients list. Additionally, this is not a vegan palette. Both of these highlighters may contain carmine. In the seemingly dichotomous world of cruelty-free versus not cruelty-free, Physicians Formula is one of those brands that exists in a little bit of a gray space. So if that is of concern to you, do your own research and figure out if, by your own definition, Physicians Formula is cruelty-free. Now let's take a look at the individual products, starting with the Butter Bronzer, the original shade. I will make sure, as I'm editing, that the color is good on camera. It seems to be good from what I can see in the viewfinder, but if it's not, I will make sure to add photos and do any editing that I need to do to make sure that you can really see what these products look like. So here is the original Butter Bronzer. I really enjoy the shade of bronzer. I think it works quite well for me. I have a hard time with bronzer sometimes, but this satin finish and the tone seem to work quite well. I think this is quite a nice shade. The single shade that has given me the most problems in this palette is the Matte Minoi Bronzer, which is this darker bronzer color. Let me give you a swatch of that. Something about this tone just does not work for me. I don't even think it's the depth, though I think the depth isn't helping. I think that this is just a hair too warm and I almost think that this has a little bit of an olive undertone to it. This, even sheared out, even when I can get it light enough for my skin tone, still looks unnatural. There is some quality to this product that my skin just doesn't produce, and it looks off and orange, but also sickly at the same time. So this was not a hit for me. However, the powder is a nice quality. I'm actually wearing it in my crease today, and it shows up quite nicely. It's definitely warm, and this is a really big pan of eyeshadow for me, essentially, but I don't dislike it, and I think that if you have a slightly warmer skin tone and or a slightly deeper skin tone, it would probably work pretty well for you. Next up, let's go to the Mineral Glow Pearls highlighter. You have a clean finger, there's one. I'm actually wearing all of these products today. I don't think I mentioned it with the butter bronzer, but I mixed it with the Happy Booster blush and applied it all over my forehead and my neck and my chest. I did it quite lightly because I wanted this to look pretty natural, but it is definitely a little bit deeper than my natural skin tone. And I do think that this adds a little bit of a healthy glow, makes it look like I actually have been out in the sun when really I've just been sitting in my apartment for about a year at this point. Okay, so that's where I'm at. Now for the Mineral Glow Pearls. Here we have that. I just cannot seem to get this to catch the light, but it is what I have on my cheeks. It is blinding, and I really like this. This is a pretty subtle application, really. I think that it looks more or less like this could be coming from my skin. I do see some texture in real life. I don't know how well it's going to come across on camera. I have some acne scars that are, like depressions in my skin, and it is definitely accentuating those somewhat, though not ridiculously. I feel like I should also mention that the glow pearls do not look this sort of pinky beige color when you receive the palette. There is a glittery, like, silver white overspray that makes these look so much prettier than they actually are. However, it's just chunky white glitter, and I applied this the first time and got a lot of glitter. The second time I just brushed over it with I think a fan brush. I don't actually remember what brush I used, and I got rid of pretty much all the glitter. I think there's the occasional piece hanging around, but it's not too bad at this point. And it is a little bit on the chunky side. This is a pretty light application. I could definitely build this up to be super blinding, but it would also be pretty chunky looking. The gold highlight is a pretty similar story. This is also a little bit on the chunky side, though I think it's actually a little bit smoother than the pearl. There is that gold highlight. This is a gold that works pretty well for me on its own. I also really like to mix it with blushes, especially matte blushes, to make them just a hint more glowy. I have it all over my lid today, and I'm really liking it. It's holding up quite well. I've only had it on for a few hours, but I'm always impressed when a highlighter does really well in the eyes. It's also worth it to note that though this is fragrance, as well as the Matte Manoy bronzer, which I also have on my eyes, they're not giving me any issues. I don't feel any irritation, and I can't smell the products. This is a shade where I can definitely catch myself in the wrong light and see a little bit of a stripe. However, mixing it in with a blush, applying it as eyeshadow, there are definitely ways that I can make this work, and I have also just mixed it before with this lighter shade, which is a bit more on the pink side, and it's worked out really well. We're down to the last two products. We have the pressed powder. I mean, it's a barely there pressed powder. It's probably a good sign that you can't see it very well in a swatch. I have used this to set down my moisturizer today, as well as a little bit of concealer that I have on my chin and on my nose. I mean, what is there to say? It's a pressed powder. It's going to work for fair to light skin tones. It's probably not going to work if you are of a deeper skin tone. And really, the rest of this palette, probably also not going to work if you're a very deep skin tone. Maybe the two highlighters, but I don't think the blush would show up. I don't think that these would function as bronzers for you if you have a deep skin tone. And of course, this is probably going to look like a white cast nightmare. And then finally, we have the Happy Booster Blush. This one in a swatch, I do notice the scent, and it does have a different scent than the other products, but it's not bad or unpleasant. It's just different. I hate to say that it smells chemically because all smells are chemicals. That's how smell works. But, you know, I think that description makes some sense. Here is that swatched out. I also have it on my cheeks. It is a nice flush. I think you can tell that the overall vibe that this palette is going to give you is pretty light, pretty neutral, pretty everyday. It is a pretty pink flush. This is very much a satin finish. It has a little tiny bit of glitter that you can only see if you get really, really close up, but it is there if that's of concern to you. You can adjust the shade just a little bit. If you really wanted to focus your brush right here, you could get a bit more of a bright pink. I've always just swirled my brush through the entire thing, and I end up with, well, this color that I'm showing you and what I have on my cheeks today. Overall, I think this is a really nice little face palette. If it was up to me, I would probably have switched out this matte bronzer for probably a second blush. Just for me and the way I do my makeup, it would make more sense to have 2 blushes than 2 bronzers in this palette. And I think that an almost purple toned blush would have been a really interesting and fun addition to this palette. However, I also know that most people are going to be able to use this matte Minoy bronzer more effectively than I can. And I still feel, even though only 5 of the powders work for me, like I got a really good deal. So before I get to who I think this might be good for, I think it would be worthwhile to point out who this would not be good for. If you're sensitive to scents, this one's probably not for you. This is very heavily fragranced, though I don't notice the fragrance on my face. If you are vegan, not going to be good for you, again, because there's carmine in it. If you are very staunchly cruelty-free and don't consider Physicians Formula a cruelty-free brand, this is out. Also, if you have a medium, tan, or deep skin tone, this is not going to work for you. If you have a moderate amount of Physicians Formula makeup, you will likely not get a lot of added value from this. As far as I can tell, these are quite similar to existing and quite popular items in their line. So, if you already have the butter bronzer, which I'm guessing a lot of people do, and you've tried the Happy Booster blush, well, that's a third of the palette right there. If your skin tone is more on the fair to light, maybe even to light medium spectrum, the products in here will probably work pretty well for you. If you are looking to build up a makeup collection, maybe you're starting from scratch, or maybe you have, 1 or 2 different face products, I think this would be a great purchase. And if you're just wanting to sample some Physicians Formula items, I also think this is a great way to do it. I mean, 6 pretty popular items for $15 would be pretty difficult to beat. Okay, I think that is about it for me. I will link to a couple of Get Ready With Me's where I did use this face palette if you want to see it a bit more in action. Thank you so much for watching. I really hope you enjoyed, and I hope you'll consider liking and subscribing if you did. I'm already looking forward to next time. Bye!